As the years passed, Dr. Zemmer continued to perform numerous surgeries and procedures. However, it was not only the physical bodies that he helped, but also the souls of the unsaved through the gospel of Jesus Christ.
I got another picture of a lady here, gray-haired, naked except for a loincloth, with a big tumor on her neck and reaching clear down onto her shoulder. This lady had walked a long distance to come to our hospital because she had heard that here they could be helped. And I was able to do the surgery for her, remove the tumor, and close that wound, and she was healing beautifully. She accepted Christ while she was a patient at the hospital. And I show the other picture to show how when she's saved, she's clean, she's clothed, she's shaved, her hair is removed from her head. She's just a different person because the difference was Christ in her heart.
Despite the many life-changing successes and experiences, the Zemmers encountered a major deterrent in their ministry when Congo gained its independence from Belgium.
It was one of the quietest days I've ever seen in Africa. Nobody was out. The people stayed in their houses. Very little work at the hospital. Just quiet. And at the end of the day, one of the missionary and a native pastor came to the house and said, "We would like to have a prayer time and Thanksgiving. Here the day has come and gone and nobody's been hurt." So we met at the church and had a great evening service of thanks to God for his care. Now we had a missionary family in our station waiting to have a baby. They were here from their station and staying in our guest house to wait for their baby. And so they joined us in that celebration. And on Monday went back to work just like always. But then a week later, just exactly a week later, chaos broke out. I turned on the Voice of American radio at 7 in the morning, and it said, "There is no longer a government in the Belgian Congo." And they told all over Congo, city after city, place after place, where chaos had broken out. And the armed soldiers of the natives that were supposed to be their protection turned on them and rioted. They killed white people. They broke into the homes. They took over supplies for themselves. It was very bad. And just near us, within 200 or 300 miles around us, we heard stories of people being killed. White people, missionaries, foreigners were killed.
It was a scary time. We had warnings. We had seen what was going on, that things were not right. We began to hear a lot of stories of what was going on if they got in control. I was to be a chief's wife. They picked that all up. Harry's supposed to be the doctor. It'd be a doctor. They would control what he should do. Luann was old enough, as she was the eighth grader at that time. She was old enough to become a wife herself. Then there was Sue, who was just a little child, 3 years old. And then we had the baby. Sue was 2. And we had Debbie. And now those two I knew would never live if we were taken.
So we had this family at our station waiting to have a baby, and Pete, the husband, came to the house, and we didn't know exactly what our plan should be. We made preparations to defend ourselves on our station with Pete and myself and our families and a white nurse that we had, in case that the Simbas attacked us. But the day went quietly, no trouble. We listened on the radio. There was no difficulty close to us, and we thought, well, maybe God wants us to stay here. So on Monday, I went back to work at the hospital, taking care of patients, and cars went by on my road, which is very, very rare out there. And these were cars from a tin mine about 60 miles north of us, outside people. And they were fleeing. They said their government was going to fly emergency planes to a small airfield down the road from us, and they were all evacuated, and we would be the last white people in this whole area. So after we talked about it, and because we felt that it was not safe for the Petersons to wait for their baby, and we didn't know what the future would hold, and all around us there were stories of bad action by the rebels, we decided we should leave too.
So that's how when we left. It was at night. Our national pastor said, we can't protect you. So during the night with a candlelight and a flashlight, we packed our clothes.
We packed everything up to leave at dawn the next morning and traveled to Bukavu, our nearest town, 200 miles away. But it took us 2 days to reach that station and cross the frontier into Rwanda. We had flat tires, we had a punctured gas tank, we had a broken fuel pump on an engine, we had just about everything that could go wrong with the car, it seemed like. But we made it to the frontier, crossed without difficulty into Rwanda. And these people had been converting an island into a refugee camp, little grass huts which we could get to stay in while we were waiting to see what would happen. And that night, as we arrived at this island place, this little island out in the lake, that night the storekeeper on land where we had bought bread and things before we went on the island was killed. They had riots even here in Rwanda that almost reached us, and in the night we could see people in canoes all around our island, but they did not touch us, and we were safe. We stayed there for 3 weeks before we were finally able to get a plane out of Africa.
When the Zemmers arrived back in the States, they had nothing. All their valuables and memorable items were left abandoned in Africa. However, God was good, and Dr. Zemmer went back to medical school and later opened his own office, continuing to serve God both at work and in the church, sharing the story of his adventures in Africa and the inspirational memories of his ministry.
I was able recently to talk to a missionary who had been able to make his way back to our old station, 200 miles through the jungle, no bridges over the rivers, very, very, very difficult trip. But he was able to make that trip back to our old station. The houses are all gone, but my hospital is still standing, and the native people are serving God yet in that way. The pastors are active, and we thank God that the ministry is still going on even after these